anything as well, or no?
No, we're good. Welcome, Angie and Curtis, to Genesis Office Hours, episode number 18. And today we are chatting privately. We're pre recording this episode. So thanks to everybody that sent in questions yeah, you people. Thank you. So good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Good
Uh,
morning.
Curtis, you sound a little sleepy.
I am a little sleepy. I had about 5 hours of sleep last night, so
And you've got a
that is
newborn
life
in
with a
the
baby.
house. All right. Well, for those who haven't had a chance to meet you guys, Curtis, why don't you start by introducing yourself and a little bit of what about you do?
Sure. I'm Curtis McHale. I have been building WordPress sites for 6 or 7 years. I always forget and then see like history posts and go, oh, I remember when that happened. So, and it seems older. I specifically build WordPress e-commerce and membership sites. And that's it. I've been working for myself for more than over half the time that I've been working on WordPress. And I'm wearing Transformers pants.
I hope you'll stand up at some point during the podcast so that we can enjoy those. Do they transform into shorts or into rocket ships or no?
No, they're black and gray. You can't really tell that they're Transformers pants. If I was wearing my Superman pants, then you can tell that those because they're blue with like big Superman symbols on them.
Amazing. And you wonder where the power comes from. And now you know Curtis's secret. It's all about the pants.
That's right.
Wow, Hangout's giving me a sunburn again. Angie, tell us who you are.
I'm Angie Meeker, and I have been building WordPress websites since 2008 and using Genesis most of that time, I think. Yeah.
Cool. And I am your host, Carrie Dills. And Angie and Curtis, I met both. I had seen them around just the online WordPress community and social media, and interacted with them a few times, and now have the great pleasure of being in a mastermind group with these two. Just incredibly smart, savvy business people with some great experiences in freelancing. So that's kind of what I wanted to chat with you guys about, and we have some questions that we'll get to in a sec. But Curtis, you mentioned the e-commerce and membership sites are sort of your gig. Can you talk about kind of what an average project looks like for you?
Yep. A lot of projects start with a theme build for whatever e-commerce or membership platform we end up using. I've worked with all of the major ones except iThemes Exchange. Just haven't had a project that needed its specific set of tools yet. And then I end up building a bunch of custom tools on top of that. So for one set of real estate agent coaching site, membership site, I built the whole scheduling set for them. So the coaches could say what times they're available, and then so the students could book those times on the calendars for all the coaches, and then so that the coaches could take notes on each student. They had public and private notes, so the next coach could see the notes, and the student would get emailed their notes after the session as well. And then it also, like, they had a certain number of calls per month, so it docked the calls per month in their custom database at the same time. We built that to replace an external tool that was crushing their server, because we just crushed the API on the external tool. That's probably the biggest one I've done recently. I built a lot of custom tools that are sort of simple. Built that calendaring thing in or similar to that a few times.
So you're like, how did you come across those requirements for that project? Do you have an extensive kind of I have not had very much coffee at this point in time, and it's obvious from the way I can't even get an entire question out. But how do you build out the requirements and scope a project?
And for that project, it came to me. They knew what they needed because they had an existing tool. I was actually recommended by Karma Toast is her Twitter name, and I am totally blanking on what her actual name is, and she's out in the UK. I think she works for Automatic now, but I have to double check. She just recommended me to build that external tool for them. For some of the other ones, they're a little more fluid. So another not for a real estate coach, but for a corporate coach, I built a whole system for him to assign kind of tasks or like the things they shouldn't do to break the rules for corporate training. And like we built the whole system for them to assign it. And that was more of a fluid. We started off with a basic wireframe provided from another designer, and then we built that whole thing out with custom post types. And I think the big thing I always want to do is try and solve a problem for a user, right? What is their problem? What can't they do that they want to do? And after that, it's just whatever tool fits that, solving that problem properly.
And is it typically very easy to know what that problem is, or does that take a lot of coaxing to get that piece of information from a client?
Totally depends on the client. I've had some clients that say they, like when you want to start talking even numbers about something to help solve the problem and figure out, like, is this real return on investment for you, right? Say it's going to cost you $15,000 to do something, but you're only going to make an extra $5 on it. It's not worth it. So some clients will know that. They'll know, like for a membership site, what is their average lifetime member value, right? So if it's $100 and we can bring in 10 new members per month, then we just increased your revenue $1,000 per month, right? And if they're there for a year, then we've done that for a year. So spending a little bit of money now to do that portion is not a big deal, or to improve the tools. Like I said, with that calendaring system, they're having members quit because they couldn't book their calls. So we recouped members that were quitting and stopped the whole server from crashing at the same time.
Wow, yeah, that's definitely a problem solved.
And we saved them $50,000. Like, that's how much they're paying a year for this tool. So we spent $20 to build it.
Curtis is wicked smart.
He is wicked smart. Yeah, I've learned a lot just by osmosis of hanging out with you guys. But Angie, I know that you have an extensive process that you go through when you're scoping a project and meeting with clients, and it really, in my mind, sets you apart from when we typically think about consultants specifically using the Genesis framework. Or even WordPress consultants going in and scoping out these little $2,500 sites or whatnot, and you really take it a step further into, kind of like Curtis was saying, the art of solving a problem and setting a client on the right course. Can you share a little bit about how your process has evolved and what it currently is?
Sure. Well, I used to, when we would book a project, the client would, we used to work with clients that said, I need a website, and we would say, great, I can build a website. Let me go build that for you. And I would pretty much, I don't want to say guess, but I would figure out myself what they really needed in the site, and what their users were trying to accomplish and who their users were, and I would build it from there. I just didn't bring the client in on that process at all. And now we've moved to starting from a place where we talk to the client about their brand, and then we move into, well, who are your users? What are your users' goals? Like, they come to the site trying to accomplish something in their lives. So what is that? And then how do we build a site that helps them accomplish that goal? And then we match that with the business's goals, because the business has goals probably a little bit separate from just what the user's goals are. So it's like this matrix of their brand, and then their users, their types of users, their users' goals, and then their own business goals to increase awareness and efficiency and revenue on their site. And then we also then look at their competition and see what's their competition offering on their sites, where we can maybe set them apart from their competition. So now we bring the client in on all of that process, and it's very different because there's no guessing then. When we go to build wireframes, we know that what we're offering them is going to help their users get where they need to go because they've told us this is who our users are and here's what they're trying to accomplish. For me, it's taken a lot of the guesswork out of what we try to do and the back and forth with clients.
So at what point do you actually quote a price for the project? Is it before you go into those discussions, or after you have?
So I do it before, and I know a lot of people say we shouldn't, like, all of that should be before we quote the price of the project. And it's possible that eventually we'll get to that point where we switch it and you have to have all of that done first, and that's a paid project before we even try to figure out what the site needs. But right now we're quoting it all in one price, except it's broken into 3 parts. So typically what we offer a client now is they can purchase the discovery process, which is everything I just talked about. They can purchase the discovery, and we'll also build out wireframes and style tiles, and then they can take that stuff to someone else and have them build it, or they can pick all 3, but they can't get a website built anymore without having the discovery process, because we want to know that whatever we're building is going to work, is going to be successful for them. So yeah, like I said, some people make that a paid scope, but we haven't switched to that yet. I think probably we will eventually, but we're still transitioning. I feel like we're still transitioning to clients who even appreciate that in the first place. Like, there are a lot of clients that they are the just, I want to build a website, just build it. And when you say, well, I want to talk to you about who your people are and what they need to do and what you need to do, they say, I don't really care about that. I just want a website. Honestly,
Well,
there are lots of people like that, and I don't want to work with those people anymore. So
I was going to say, yeah, that's a tremendous indicator that that's not a fit for
yeah,
your agency.
yeah,
Yeah, and you can refer them to someone else.
right. Fiverr, that's where I send them. No, I'm kidding. I don't.
Whatever. Curtis, I have a question for you from Jackie. You recently published a post over on curtismchale.ca called Not Fully Focused. And in your opinion, why do you think some people struggle with the overlapping? And maybe give a little context around that post for folks that hadn't read it yet.
So Not Fully Focused was a post with me thinking about, am I fully focused on what I'm doing, right? Am I fully focused on my consulting? Or did you know I've also written a couple different books in slightly different fields? Or I've also got a couple plugins that have started. Right? I've also looked at, say, how Easy Digital Downloads works from Pippin, and I've got a plugin started that theoretically could turn into that business model. But am I really wholly focusing on consulting until, say, I've got 1 or 2 people that are working and it all runs smoothly and I could step away from it? Or, say a plugin business as well. Do I have 6 or 7 plugins up that make enough revenue that I can again step away and have someone else supporting it? And so that's the context for the post. And you have to ask me the question again because I forgot about it now that I said the context.
Yeah. Who's muted now, Carrie?
Oh, whoops, crap. I muted myself. Here I was just talking away. Do you think, why do people struggle with that? Is it because they haven't necessarily found their passion, or it's just overwhelming, or?
I think that's part of it. I responded to one of the comments this morning, and part of that chase is figuring out what is really your fit, right? Is it building the plugins for me? Consulting, and part of that is that chase. I think the thing is that a lot of freelancers get stuck in the chase. They don't ever, I don't know, say I'm only going to work on training for the next year, right? I'm going to, run the consulting on the side, or I'm only a year and a half or 2 years until it runs smoothly, till I could step away, or till I have, a year worth of income in the bank, and then I can step away for 6 months and really focus on writing courses or writing books or writing plugins. Been going. And even myself, you jump between doing some consulting, and then the next couple weeks you're writing a plugin, and then I'm sitting right now with that plugin pretty much written, and just had a little bit of client work come up this week, so it's just sitting there. I need to record some screencasts to be able to launch it, and that's it. There's just a little bit of documentation to do, and it is done, and I could have it out the door. But then it's finding time, right? As we were saying before, I also teach at a local college, which I enjoy, but I was up till midnight last night and have a baby. I was up at 5:30, and so I just haven't had time this week to actually finish off that documentation and get that out the door.
You're overlapped with diapers right now.
Yeah, I guess so. My wife does most of that. She's wonderful, just because I work and she has the baby and the kid.
All right. One thing I want to talk about is pricing and value-based pricing, and this is something that I've heard Chris Lema preach for a couple of years, and Curtis and Angie here more recently have heard both of you talking about. There's a podcast, I think it's the Freelancers podcast that you appear on regularly, Curtis?
Freelancers Show.
Oh, Freelancer Show, yes. And a fellow named Kirk Bowman on that was talking about kind of the art of value-based pricing. And I actually had a chance to meet Kurt. He's out of Dallas. I met him at WordCamp Austin this past year. But talk a little bit, and you hinted on it earlier when you said you're solving problems and what what the value of that problem was. But in a nutshell, or it doesn't even have to be in a nutshell, we've got time. I'd like both of you, starting with Curtis, to talk about value-based pricing and also how that plays into, I know this is getting into a long question, how that plays into your structure for weekly pricing for projects. Go.
So we should even say that I price weekly, right? It's like $3,000 a week for my time on projects. And so when I look at value, is so like the real estate coaching site that I talked about, where we built the whole calendaring system, and we knew they were spending $50,000 a year, and they were losing users, and I forget what the user numbers were, but it was like to the order of $1,000 per month, and just users dropping off and not coming back and not being able to recapture. And so once we knew that, we could say, okay, well, it's costing you 50. I can now build it for 20, right? And we've anchored the cost, we've anchored their cost against the 50, right? So when I say it's 20, it's not that big a deal. Theoretically, if I could do it for 20 and say it's going to only take a week, like they still think, hey, I saved $30,000, and we're recapturing or not losing that, a few $1,000s per month of users. And that's, in a nutshell, that is value-based pricing, or that's how I approached that project when I priced it out, right? Another way to look at it is I'm looking at doing it's like a product configurator plugin for WooCommerce, where it's like a flooring system, so you can conference flooring, and you can pick like the electric boxes you want and how many pieces you need for the length, and if you need a corner unit for it, and so they can build all that out. Previously, that's been all the sales process time, so the people like on the phone with these people building it out and talking through it, whereas now they can at least go through, build what they think they need if we do this project, then they can send that off to themselves, they can get the PDF, they can send it off to the sales team, who then has a contact. We'll probably build in being able to save it to their account, and so they can get a quote sent back to them right to their WooCommerce account, and that's going to save all of the time on the staff end. So we did some rough math on how much time that's going to save, and it's going to save like it was like $6,000 or $7,000 per month, pretty reasonably, in salesperson time. So building that again for, I don't know, say 15 to 20,000 is good, right? And then a bunch of their competitors have these kind of product configuration stuff. So they're also, coming up to where their competitors are, so that people can go and shop and they can actually look at and then get a quote on their product properly.
Well, there you have it.
That was a really good example.
Well, yeah, that is, and one of the things that on that podcast that I was, the Freelancer Show podcast, I was thinking about, and Angie, maybe you can address value-based pricing from this angle. Probably for most, I'm guessing most of the listeners of Genesis Office Hours are probably in a similar boat, where we're consultants or freelancing, working on smaller scale projects, and our average customer just doesn't quite get value-based pricing, or we don't even know how to sell it, probably is part of the problem too. But how did you transition yourself from those kind of customers that now you're saying you know it's not a good fit and you walk away from them? But I mean, a year ago, that was who you were working with, right?
Oh yeah.
So yeah. How did you make that leap from that kind of customer into what we'll call this more desirable customer that really understands the value that you bring to the table?
Well, so we The first thing we did was we just listened to what everyone told me to do, which was to just raise my prices. And it was interesting, which I don't think is the answer. I've come to realize now I don't think it's the only, well, it's one part of the answer. How's that? Just raising my prices made a lot of those people that were wanting, they figured that a website was $1,500 and that was it, and they were in and out. I just don't get those people anymore. Mostly, unless I choose to do a project like that. Like maybe it's a nonprofit referral and I know that's their budget or something like that. I can go down and do a project like that, but I don't have to. So the first thing we did was raise our prices, and the second is we just told clients this is part of working with us. Like in order to work with us, you have to go through this discovery process because we want to work with successful clients. We want to be able to look back and say, during our time together, we can measure our success. Like whatever we build for you, we can measure the success of that. And if we don't talk about these things, I can't know that. So it's almost like I put it back on them at this point. I almost say, you're not going to be happy with our work unless we can show you that we've accomplished the goals that you needed to accomplish. And some of them don't know. They don't know their goals. But if they're willing to work through that process at least, then that to me shows that they are a type of client that we want to work with. The person who says, I don't want to do that at all, that's who we don't want to work with. The person who says, I don't know that, but please help me figure those things out, help me figure out my goals, that's okay. It's better. It's not like the ideal scenario, but it's better, I think. So for me, it's been a matter of positioning, and I think we talked about this last week in our mastermind or on Slack or something a little bit, how even I haven't gone back to my website and repositioned the copy on it. It still reads very much like we just build stuff. Like we're not necessarily solving problems, we're just building stuff. And I think it is a matter of how you position yourself, how you present what you do, that you're not just a tinker, you're not just a person pushing buttons and putting numbers on the screen that make things happen, but that you start from that place of we're going to solve problems for you. We're going to help you increase your revenue and efficiency and awareness.
That's some fantastic advice. That was worth the price of free admission right there.
But that's hard. Can I be honest? I think for me, when I'm getting more comfortable doing that now because I've realized people will pay for that. But when I first started, it was really hard because it's like you have to say to someone, in some ways you have to say like, I know this part of what I'm doing better than you do. Does that make sense or no?
Yeah.
I don't know if it does or not, but you have to be willing to say, let me walk you through this process that's going to take you somewhere that maybe you don't understand it. Maybe I understand that better than you do. You know your business, but I know this, so let me help you make the two goals match. And that's hard. I think a lot of freelancers struggle with that. The confidence to say that to a client.
I was going to say the confidence. I have absolutely told clients when we've been talking, and here's a great idea. This is how we should do it. And my only response is, that's stupid. And they, pardon me, like that's a dumb idea. If you want to do that, I guess you can, but you're going to waste your money. And then I'll explain why. But being able to say that, like, that's stupid, and just leave the silence as they go, huh? What do you mean that's dumb? That's a bad idea. And again, tell them why, right? Like, an easy and obvious example is, let's talk about sliders on my homepage of my e-commerce web. Well, what do you mean that's dumb? And then I start going into stats like 80% of people don't click on it.
Yeah.
Or no, sorry, 99% of people don't click on it. 1% do, and 89% click on the first slide. Oh, and then the rest talk about accessibility. And once we get through it, or half the is good or bad, they go, oh, okay, you have thought about this. So what can we do? Because my goal is to showcase products on the homepage. Right. What is the best way to do that? But it's telling them no. I think the other hard part for freelancers at the beginning, or for programmers at the beginning, is that you don't even know what you don't know yet. Like, I know when I started, I wasn't thinking about business yet. I was thinking about how do I put the title somewhere that I want to do it, right? And then I think I did a couple like basic themes, and then I got Genesis, and I was like, "Oh, what is this thing?" Because it's all actions and hooks, and it felt like so epically hard. And my first thought was, Genesis is so dumb. And now that I've been doing it for a while, I do not do Genesis all the time, but I've worked with other systems that how they use the actions and filters and everything. And so I look at Genesis and like I can find what I need within, a couple minutes. Not as fast as someone who does it all the time because they would know it already, but it's no harder for me now than any other new WordPress thing that I haven't dealt with before. That's well written. We're excluding crappy things like you find some places, but you have to get past that point where you actually know the right questions to ask, right? Where you can stop. You're not just being a technician anymore. You're not just figuring out how do I even do my job so that I'm worth some money. Then you're actually able to start working on running your business effectively.
That's go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say the part where you were talking about sliders, and that's such that is such a great obvious example of like last week we met with a client that we've already been working with for a while, and they said once they saw the site that we had created for them, they said, there's not a lot of movement on this page. And I knew as soon as she said movement, I knew where she was going. And so she said, what about those sites that have this thing that goes like this? And then she pointed to an example, and she said, I just think readers need to have some movement on the page, and they really like those revolving content things. And I was like, well, actually, let me tell you, they actually don't like those. And by the time we were done, she was like, okay, fine. Let's do it this other thing that's going to produce movement. Really what she was trying to say was, I don't want all the same content on the front page all the time. I want people to be able to come to the front page and see that we're active, we're doing things, and to her that was a slider. So it's like you have to be able to, exactly what you said. What are you trying to accomplish with this? What's the goal that you're trying to accomplish with this? Let's talk about that instead of the tool that gets you there. And that's true. I think that's probably true for WordPress in general, don't you think? Like people are a lot. I think, and I'm trying to do this less and less, but it's still a huge part of me. So, saying I build with WordPress, I accomplish your goal with WordPress. Most people, I don't think they care. Honestly, I don't think they care. So, talking more about what we're fixing or helping them accomplish than how we're doing it.
Curtis, you had something to tack on?
Yeah, I was going to say, I tell my students that the only time it's really good to get a slider is when you just can't get the business owner to say no to it, and the rest of the project is awesome. So it's really good at making the business owner happy or marketing happy.
Right.
And then you get them to also agree to like tracking the stats on it, and after a while you can revisit those stats and say, look, it doesn't work, guys. Let's figure out something that does work. I think stuff like that, even social media buttons, is a good way. Like having a slider and having new content up there that no one's clicking on is a good way to fool yourself into thinking you have a content strategy. Just like having social sharing buttons on your blog posts is a good way to fool yourself into thinking that you have a social strategy. No, you have some buttons on there that nobody clicks. They're typically a vast wasteland of nobody ever clicked on me and liked my content.
That's just depressing.
Again, we got lots of stats for that. I actually teach my course that I'm teaching now, and I'll be teaching again this weekend, is a developer course, and I spend like the first day and a half or 2 days talking about sliders, design best practices, and they're like, I'm not a designer. I'm like, I know you're not a designer, but you're going to get crap from designers. That's going to be terrible because they got, someone didn't feel they had the money for the design, and so you got a terrible design, and you're going to look at it and go, okay, maybe I can't make this whole thing pretty because I am not a designer, but I know that this, and this is dumb, and here is why this is dumb. And they're going to look at you and be like, why didn't my designer know that? And you'll be like, I don't know, maybe your designer just didn't know yet. They haven't looked into that yet, but it's dumb. Here's why we're not going to do it, and let's figure out a better way to do it.
Well, going back to that issue of confidence, Curtis, you come with confidence overflowing, and the rest of us can envy it a little bit. But
that's the truth.
You mentioned being a technician. And I recently was reading the E-Myth Revisited, and he talks a lot about, I can't remember the author's name. I'll throw it up in the show notes. Who's it?
It's Michael Gerber, isn't it? Is that right?
Oh, maybe.
Yes, no.
I think so.
But he talks about, and the E stands for the entrepreneurial myth, and people who love what they do or are really great at what they do, and let's say that making websites or working with code is what I'm great at, and because I'm a great technician at that, I assume that I can go hang out my shingle and make a successful consulting business or freelancing business for myself. And the goals of a technician are very different from the goals of a business owner, and so he talks a lot about. It's a great read, but he talks a lot about how you got to let each warring personality in you kind of have its turn at the wheel, because running a successful business is you've got to have that business hat on, and I think, Angie, that's how you moved from doing those small websites into these more strategic and larger projects. And anyhow, it's just sort of an interesting journey, and that really resonated with me, because I'm a great technician and a modest business owner, but getting better.
I think for me, like, this is
Go
not
ahead, Chris.
I've worked construction, and lots of things that guys do is the job it basically amounts to. got paid to lift heavy things, and I always lifted heavy things, whatever it happened to be, construction on the side. I have had been running taxes through as my own business for probably 10 years now, since I've been married. One of us has the whole time. I enjoy what I do, but I think I could be happy running a business in a number of other fields without, it would be just fine with me, because it would be some, working for myself or another field that I would like.
Angie, what do you have?
Well, just talking about the E-Myth, so for me, I think I could be pretty happy being the entrepreneur, and I think that there are lots of technicians better than me, and I think I do a terrible job at being the manager. So, and I think that when you have to do it all yourself, it's very easy to get stuck in one of those three roles when you have to do it all yourself. And I think that, and now, okay, so this next part I'm not really sure of, because I haven't done this yet. I haven't made this transition in my business, if I'm even going to. But bringing in other people to fill one of those three roles, the one that you're not the best at, is very interesting to me, and I think is also probably the gateway from doing the size of projects that I'm doing now to whatever's next, because I can't do all three. I feel like I can't continue to do all three of those things myself. So, but I don't know that for sure. That's just what I think at this point. You figure it out as you go,
Yeah, that's just called growing pains, and at the point where it becomes unmanageable to operate in all three of those roles, or that you're having to say no to projects because of your capacity, then those are good indicators that it's time for help. Curtis,
When I realized,
oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, when I realized keeping up on my taxes and stuff, I was like, okay, I need to hire someone else, because I'm never going to catch up to that. And we had just had a baby. My wife had been doing it previously, and she's not going to catch up on that either. And then I hired someone else to do that, and then a few other not time-sensitive tasks, right? So even my invoicing, it's, my invoice goes out on Tuesday, Wednesday. It's not that big a deal 99% of the time. And if it is, then I send out a single invoice myself. Other than that, my assistant takes care of it, improving my blog posts, even putting up my emails. I write all the content, but she'll organize it all, get up for me.
Curtis, do you have any tips for how to find a good match, either for an admin assistant all the way up to hiring a contractor?
I tried outsourcing. This is my third time, actually. So the previous two times I went with outsourcing firms. I don't remember the first one. I don't remember how much I was paying there. Probably not a lot. I didn't have a lot of money, and I was jumping on it because I was so successful, right? There's huge air quotes around that. And then I was paying a firm in Canada, which is where I am, so a North American firm who had theoretically lots of resources, but I was getting them to do some other design work for me, and it was just terrible. It was like my 2-year-old at the time could have given me. I could have done as good as that. And it was stuff like, oh, here's a slider on your homepage, and here's social media buttons. Yeah, we just talked about that, so you can guess what I said. That was the fourth design revision after 5 months. And I wrote back, I said no social media buttons. Look at this right here. And I believe I probably used the word moron in there because I was just mad at that point. This person is actually just a local woman. She needed some work, and she works at a local bank as well, and she's good administratively, and we said we'd try it out for 3 months, and she's like, do you want to see my resume? And I was like, can you type? Yeah. Okay, we'll learn the computer stuff you need to do, and at the end of 3 months, we'll know if you can do the job or not, right? And so I'm actually paying her, I'm paying her again appropriately, a little bit better than she makes at the bank, but again, she has to take some money out for taxes, so it probably comes up to about the same. That's extra hours for her she can do in the evenings and weekends, so I don't have a secret. I know, what's his name? The
Justin.
virtual assistant solution. No, not Justin. Who cares about that Justin guy? I don't even like him. Justin is also in our mastermind, for those who don't know. But the virtual assistant solution by Michael Hyatt, I mean, that's one that talks about hiring EA help, is the one that he recommends, and I looked at them as well. They were a little more expensive as well, but again, I think it was like $40 an hour maybe. And so his book talks about like classifying, and so I sat down and classified, like, here's all the tasks that I could give to a virtual assistant. And there were some in there that I ended up meetings because of her hours, because she'll work like, Friday night sometimes, so that means she can't necessarily for me. And so I set up other automation tasks to take that over. But that was originally something I was at it, and as I kept thinking about it over the first month and a half, I was like, this is just not something she can do. So I moved that off to other automation, so I don't have to book my own meetings. I have to send someone a link that says, go book a meeting right here, guys, and they book it, and I get a notification on my calendar, and hopefully don't show up late to them like I may have yesterday.
Do you always wear Transformer pants to your meetings?
No, it just depends how early it is. I've worn Superman pants a few times, but I always put on a good shirt. It's a bicycle stack exchange shirt.
All right, Angie, I've got a question for you from Jackie. First, compliments on your website and compliments on the story of how you've built your business. But Jackie saw your Matt Report interview, and she wants to know, how do you stay on top of the latest marketing, web analytics, branding, blah, blah. I mean, how do you stay up to date, basically?
So since she's not here, I can't ask if she meant for myself or for clients. Boy, that's a good question. Yeah, I don't have an. You're going to have to edit this part out because I don't have an answer to that question.
Somebody asked that question of a guest a couple of weeks ago on Office Hours, and he mentioned just a podcast, a technical podcast that he listened to, which was, one way you kind of he kind of stayed on top of things. You read quite a bit on business books, or?
Yeah, I guess that's true. I mean, really, at this point, I feel like I'm mostly listening to podcasts because I can do it while I work. And yeah, I don't, as far as design, the thing is this, I think if you look at my site, and I probably shouldn't say this in public. I think if you look at I don't care, it's fine at this point. I think if you look at my sites, they're not overly designed. You know what I mean? Like, they're simple. You can look at them. You can tell that most of the site is done with CSS. There's not a lot of graphics brought into it and things like that. So I don't feel like, I almost feel like, because I don't know. Sorry, I'll just stop. I don't have an answer to that question. Sorry.
That's all right.
Keeping up is hard,
better to just stop. It is, yeah. Well, because I mean, you have time for yourself to work on your business, time to help your clients get where they need to go, and But the thing is, is that if you can't do it for yourself, then how do you expect clients to believe that you can do it for them? So even recently, we talked about this the other day. I haven't blogged on my site in probably 4 months, maybe longer. I know, right? But it's because in this transition, I realized that what I was writing wasn't matching who I want to be writing towards, or writing for. And so rather than continuing to produce the wrong content, I said, you know what? Until I have the voice figured out for the new customer, then I'm not going to screw around with it. So yeah, I don't know to answer that question.
No,
I should figure that out. Figure out how to keep up.
I think one of the tactics I use is I follow a few people, like I don't know, Tom McFarlane, or I follow Post Status, right? So I'm keeping up on developer topics. I follow a few key developers. Zach Tolman is great. He blogs like once a quarter, maybe once every new moon if he's really, on the ball. But his posts are so technically deep that as a developer, I'm like, that's awesome, and I read it, and then I read it again, and I read it a third time, and then I go look up some words, and I come back and read it. And I always learn tons out of there. Sometimes I'm not going to apply it right now. I may not apply it for a while, right? Like some of the advanced server configuration and stuff he does, but I know who to ask, right? I even say, I could ask Zach, hey, where do I the best places to look? And he probably has 10 resources that he can say, go read these 10 things, and then you'll have a good handle on it. So I don't think you can keep up with everything. And Tom McFarlane has written a bunch about this, like improving his tools. He's still using MAMP is what he uses for his local development. He's not using any of the build tools that even WordPress core uses now, like Grunt, because he's like, what I have works. Why would I spend a whole bunch of time learning all these new tools when what I have works and I'm not encountering a pain, right? I may succumb to, hey, this is new and shiny sometimes with my development tools and switch around. So I try not to, but I may sometimes.
Yeah, I think I mostly use social media, Twitter specifically, to stay on top of things. And like you said, following some interesting people and other smart people and just seeing what they're doing. Of course, you get your share of animated GIFs in your timeline, but there's useful content
which
that
is
comes
also
out too.
needed. That's how I did to the Justin Sternberg's animated GIF workflow. That was a
Yeah, I
good
mean, I would
thing.
have never known that there was an actual such a thing as a GIF workflow, and using Alfred to quickly find the perfect GIF for any situation.
There is people, and it is on GitHub.
Who knew? We'll link to that in the show notes. So a few weeks ago, I was talking about Typekit and some other subscription-based services or license-based tools, and I mentioned that I don't like to have my clients on there. I prefer them to have their own licenses so that I'm not tied to them. And what's your guys' opinion if when it comes to a plugin license? I mean, take an easy one like Gravity Forms or maybe a Easy Digital Downloads add-on. Do you put the license in your client's name, or how do you handle that?
So for me, like for Gravity Forms, we have a developer's license, and what I tell clients is this: we're going to use our developer's license for this, and at this date, we'll renew our developer's license, but I'm not coming back like to up because we don't do maintenance we don't offer yet maintenance on our client site. But I said like a year, but I explained it to them. This is a year from now. You're going to lose access to updates and support for it. So if you want your own license for it, then you need to purchase one. Otherwise, the plugin itself will continue to work, hopefully, for a while. So that's how we've been doing it. In the past 2 projects, we've had them purchase their own because I don't trust clients to go and get one afterward, to go get their own license.
For me, Gravity Forms is a special case. I am grandfathered in under a very that lets me use my key, and clients can continue to use it.
Like forever?
Yeah. So it's a very, very old. It is no longer around, and if I got booted, I would be disappointed, but I would just upgrade to the developer license now. For like Easy Digital Downloads plugins, clients use their own. I don't purchase that for them. I don't purchase domains for them. That is all their job. I will say this is where you need to go, but I don't even want their credit card number to go do that. If there's an account where they can say, oh, I've set up the account, you should just be able to click off the credit card and only see the last 4, then that's fine. I'll go purchase it all for them on whatever site needs to get purchased on, but it is their job to keep that up, and it's their expense. I include that in my invoices, like in my estimates for them as an optional fee, and it says like clearly in bold, client is required to purchase this. Here's the initial cost, and then it's a yearly fee. So I always include that in my estimate so that they know the total cost. But
So just in last week, we have a client who that we're working with now on their website redesign, they had purchased their hosting back in the day through a reseller of SiteGround and a reseller of the domain, so up for 1&1, and they were done. They didn't want to work with that company anymore, and it was a mad mess getting all the information that we needed away from that company because they weren't on good terms anymore. And so, get just all the little bits and pieces that you have to get together in order to transfer everything. It was just craziness. And so we're not resellers, we're not a hosting company, and I tell people that all the time. And so we used Flywheel for the first time for this past client, for one of these clients that we're working with now, and that's really slick. I don't know if you've used it or not, but it has this nice interface where you can start a project, you can be developing the project, and then when you're ready, just transfer billing to the client, and they can take ownership of the site, of the hosting account, and you're still like a member on the hosting account, a collaborator they call it, so you can get in and tinker around with things for as long as they want you to, and if they at some point need to kick you out of that hosting account, they can, but they still maintain all of it. I'm not an affiliate for them or anything. I will be when they get their affiliate program up, though, because that was slick. It was really nice.
I've agreed. That is the slickest interface I've seen for transferring billing to a client. There's some...
WP Engine makes you access, so if a client just grants access to my email, when I go into my WP Engine account, up under my sites, there's like a whole list of sites for clients that I could look at any of their hosting panels, but I can't start the account for them. To my knowledge, I can't start the account for them and transfer it.
Right, which that's the thing. I mean, because previously what we've been doing is, if a client needs hosting, we won't purchase it for them, but we'll go and we'll set it up and all of that. And now you don't even have to do that. It's so nice. Thanks,
Some might say it's fly.
Some might.
Well, before I cut you too loose to enjoy the rest of your day, I'd like to talk a little bit about some tools of the trade. If you've got anything that you just can't live without,
Twitter.
Maybe just explain. tell a little bit about your, I guess, set of tools that you use in your daily work. Curtis, want to take it away?
Sure. I'm a developer, so my main tool is Vim, and I have a customized Vim set up for WordPress that makes it pretty much like any IDE out there. So I can do all the go-to-function stuff. That's probably that's where I spend most of my time. After that, it's terminal or shell for all my Git commands, and I use ZSH for that, which is, again, another customized thing. So extra nerdy tools for me.
Sweet. How'd you land on Vim as opposed to something like PHP Storm or something
I
else?
have a license to pretty much everything. I have purchased or have open source licenses for some now because, I have a license to PHP Storm because of open source work I do. I started with Vim many, many moons ago, and I tried back to Vim. One of the failures for me is that if they don't have the Vim movement keys, I just can't even try the editor. And so it's got a bunch of advanced, my mouse will die for 3 or 4 days, and I just keep working all the time. I get up and I'm like, oh, my mouse is dead. Oh well. So that's how much keyboard focused I am. I can run everything in my whole, all my regular workflow right from the keyboard without needing a mouse at all.
Magic.
That is impressive. Yeah. Angie, what's in your toolbox?
I'm not a developer, so I don't have any fancy tools like that. I'm the person that's using FileZilla and just doing it straight from there, Notepad++. I'm sure there are lots of better tools, but that's what I'm using. So, and Twitter, honestly, that's my tool. It helps me learn. It helps me connect to the people that I need to learn from. And that's it. So, and I'm trying to start using Trello. I had used Podio or Podio kind of as a base camp and CRM solution together, and I don't feel real comfortable. I don't feel like I could invite a client into that and know that they're going to easily be able to do what they need to do. So we're looking at Trello, I'm trying to start using Trello for myself first to make sure that I have a workflow down in it that I could invite a client to. but maybe looking also at Basecamp at some point down the road. Though I feel like a lot of people who start it drop it, so I don't know. We'll see.
Basecamp or Trello?
Basecamp, like either you love it. I've either heard like either you love it, it's your best friend, or you hate it, or you don't care, which I can't have that.
I'm a hater. I'll use it if
You're a
someone else
hater?
has it and insists it,
Right.
but I'm a hater. I don't like Basecamp. I don't love Trello anymore either.
What would you use? Because I'm just kind of getting on the Trello bandwagon. I like the ability to break out tasks and move them along in a progression. But what would you use instead, Curtis?
I use Red Booth all the time, formerly Teambox, and it can be set up to very similar to Trello, but it has a bunch of other features as well. So that's what I use, and it is awesome. I've been on that. I actually dropped like OmniFocus, which has been my main task manager for years, and every other thing for Red Booth. I have one client project that is still on Trello, and he really loves it, but I don't use Trello otherwise at all for anything.
Is Red Booth tied to time tracking and invoicing?
You can't do time tracking in there. I don't. My time tracking book lately has been a little WordCamp developer's notebook that's embossed that I draw little tomatoes on for every 30 minutes. Because I use Pomodoro. Pardon?
Why?
Because Pomodoro is the Italian word for tomato, and Pomodoro is a time tracking or time management method where you work for 25 minutes and take a 5-minute break. So Pomodoro, I do Pomodoros, and that's a tomato.
I'm most productive when I use a tomato timer. So .com will do that for you. We'll let you set 25 minutes and then it beeps and says go take a break. So yeah, the same exact thing. And I didn't mention this earlier because I didn't realize, I kind of forget that it's a tool, but we use BidSketch for our proposals, and it integrates with FreshBooks. So you can send your proposal and send an invoice and track the two things together, and it's kind of nice.
Yeah, I use BidSketch as well for all my. It saves me astronomical amounts of time.
I love BidSketch, and I'm waiting for the QuickBooks integration. I've been told it is in the works.
Right.
Well, I appreciate your time and sharing your experience and wisdom with Genesis Office Hours crowd. And you two have a wonderful day.
Thanks. See ya.
See ya. Nope. Don't have a wonderful day.
He's not going to do it.
Oh, I forgot to
July down here.
I forgot to ask Curtis. Can you tell people where to find you online?
CurtisMcHale.ca is my personal site where I blog about business stuff, and then design.ca.
All right, Angie, how about you?
So I'm on Twitter at Angie Meeker, and my website is angiemeekerdesigns.com.
Wow, I like it. It's just easy. It's our names.
It's not easy. It's so long. It's so long. We have maybe a rebrand coming that's Azadi Creative, but it's not done yet. So.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll talk about that on a future episode.
Right.
All right. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
Bye.